Hello, everyone. Welcome to Keeping Students Safe in Any Learning Environment with Gaggle. My name is Nina Sclafani. I'm the Senior Events Coordinator of Tech. You've probably received a couple of emails from me at this point with registration links, and if you've been attending our Tech Virtual Summit, you've probably also heard me say this quite a few times. Welcome to, this is our third session of today. We had scheduled 19 amazing presentations this week. So from Monday to Thursday, 4 to 5 hours of learning, all free and all designed to help you get ready for this upcoming school year. We know that it's been a pretty strange environment, and we do appreciate you coming here to help try to learn how to make that experience smoother for you and your students. We're going to get started in about a minute. I just want to allow some time for people to fall into the room, but we'll be answering questions throughout the presentation. And for those of you who would like to have a video copy of this, within 24 hours, we will be sending a video of this as well as the presentation slide deck and any additional resources that Tim may have for you today in a follow-up email. If you're just joining us, welcome to Keeping Students Safe in Any Learning Environment with Gaggle. We're going to get started in another couple of seconds. Just want to make sure that everybody who registered is here. If you're in the New York area, we know it might be hard to leave the sunshine today. The weather is very good. So if you are making that choice to be with us today, we appreciate it a little bit extra. Okay, we are going to get started. Like I said, my name is Nina Sclafani. I am the Senior Events Coordinator here at Tech, and welcome to this session, Keeping Students Safe in Any Learning Environment with Gaggle. If you're new to Zoom and you would like to ask a question or make a comment throughout the presentation, scroll over your screen, and at the bottom there, you'll see there's a Q&A box and a chat box. Open both of those up. In the chat, you can let us know where you're from, and you can make comments about all the different things that Tim mentions today. And if you have any questions, you can ask those questions in the Q&A box. We suggest that you put all the questions in there just so we don't miss them. With that, I'm going to pass the baton over to Tim. He's the Regional Sales Manager of Gaggle, and he's going to be leading this presentation today. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Nina. Thanks so much again for inviting me to participate in this. It sounds like it's been a great event. I know the session lineup was pretty awesome and very timely. Of course, we're preparing for a school year like no other. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and introduce myself, and then get started here. Am I good here with the title screen?
It's looking good.
Looking good. Perfect. Thank you. Yes, welcome to Keeping Students Safe in Any Learning Environment as part of the Tech Virtual Summit. Now, we're going to talk about safety in more of an emotional safety way today. That's really what Gaggle is most known for lately. But to introduce myself, my name is Tim Hodkinson. I'm the regional sales manager for New York State, and then some of the Northeast states, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire. And my email address is there. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at TimmerHod. And you know, I'm a former teacher. I'm a former professional development specialist with Tech. And I'm a parent, and I recently went through the mental health first aid program. I know there were some folks registered from New York City, and I know that that's actually something that's available to you. But highly recommend that if for any teachers, parents, if you're working with kids, because there's a youth version. But I'm here, I'm here today to talk about how Gaggle might be able to help your schools and your districts really enhance safety, again, from more of an emotional side. These days, safety tends to all be about masks, right? And screens and class sizes and separating 6 feet apart. And that's taken a toll on both kids and adults. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is really existed pre-pandemic, but everything's really elevated right now. So just to be aware of where we're coming from. I'm going to talk more specifically about how Gaggle does what we do a little bit later, but just to if you're wondering like, what is Gaggle? Because it's kind of a fun name. Essentially, we're a student safety platform. We've been around since 1998. And we started out as an email provider, right? So before Gmail and before Google came out with G Suite for Education, if a school wanted to provide email addresses to their kids, there really wasn't a good, safe way to do it. So that's where Gaggle came about. Now, 21 or so years later, we've adapted to now work with some of those other platforms. But the mission is always to ensure safety and well-being of students. And we do that by using a combination of people and technology. I like to keep things simple. So today, and we'll try to keep this, not too long. I told Nina just before we started, we're going to be talking about some of the stuff that we'll talk about is difficult. It's heavy topic. So, we're going to create a little bit of awareness here in the first few minutes. Then I'll talk about how we can help deal with that, and then give you some resources at the end to help out. Okay. So I want to start out with a couple of questions. Some audience participation, perhaps in the chat. I'm going to ask you just some questions. This is not Gaggle data. This is going to come from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. This is done by the CDC across the country. A lot of the large urban districts will do this. Some smaller districts will do it, and then they'll do it in pockets. I'm going to share the New York specific data for today. The link that I'll share in the presentation, you'll have access to access other states. But it's so most of the data you can compare it to national data versus state data. But it's very interesting because this comes from high school students. This survey is given every 2 years to high school students in grades 9 through 12. These are the 2017 results because they lag a little bit. The 2019 survey data should be coming very soon, if it's not already out in some small pockets, depending on the district. But I want to start things off and just say, right before I ask that question, I want to just talk about this. What do they ask on the survey? This is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Students are presented with questions about alcohol and drug use, about texting and driving, about mental health, experimenting sexually, all sorts of things that could be of risk. So I'm just going to share a few questions that are relevant, and then kind of have you think about in your perspective, in your class, in your building, in your district, how do these percentages kind of stack up? So again, high school students being surveyed in New York State, what percentage would you say were electronically bullied? So bullied by a text, by a social media. Just throw a number there. And Nina, are you there? I know Nina was going to look at she might have just stepped away. Let me see here if I can look in the chat while we're doing this. Okay, so I got a 75%, 83%. Yeah, those are actually really high. Those are high numbers. That's what I would have suspected. It's actually really low from this survey. I don't know what the reasons are for why it seems so low, but yeah, so about 1 in 6, I'd say 17% said that they were electronically bullied. The physical bullying, there's another question in there about physical bullying. That's actually a little bit higher. That's more in the 25% range. But yeah, and this is also, I'll qualify this. I believe the numbers are for this question are in a 30-day period prior to the survey. So this is not of all time. This is just in the last 30 days prior to the survey. So some of the questions have those little quirks. Okay, how many students do you think said that they experienced physical dating violence? And that's one of the questions on this survey. Number of students who reported having experienced some sort of physical dating violence. And I see a couple numbers here, 2050, right around 10%, right around 10%. So that's any number is going to be concerning. I think 10% is pretty sensitive when it comes to that many students saying that yes, this happened. So something to be aware of. Moving on to some of the more emotional, side effects of stress that they're dealing with. This is how many, again, 9th through 12th graders reported that they seriously considered attempting suicide. This question, I believe, is in the past year leading up to the survey. So when they were asked that question in the past year leading up to the survey. And this one is right around 17%. So that's about 1 in 6 also. So if you think about, if you work with high schoolers or just kind of the general picture, about 1 in 6 has at some point, seriously reported that they seriously considered that. The numbers right now, I just read an article today from the JED Foundation that during the pandemic, that number is risen to almost a quarter. So very concerning, right? So and then there's, if there's 17% that have contemplated, what would you guess would, of the number that say that they actually tried or made an attempt? I see 2, 5. This one's 10%. 10% of students reported actually making an attempt. This is where we get the real concerns of, again, 1 in 10 students has said that they made an attempt to take their life. And again, this is in the past year before the survey. So just to kind of level set us in terms of why this is important from the emotional safety side. And again, this is pre-pandemic. This is why it's really important to pay attention to certain warning signs. You may or may not know this question. This is just a general, CDC, not a survey question. This is the actual statistics. And if you take a guess of this age group, 10 to 24, what number ranks? And it's actually bumped up one spot from I think 5 or 6 years ago. So it's going up. It's actually now the second leading cause of death in the United States for individuals 10 to 24. It actually it flip-flopped with homicide the last time they reset these stats. So the only one above suicide is actually accidental death, so car accidents, drownings, things like that. So again, very concerning, very heartbreaking. That it may or may not have touched you directly, but it's, with everything going on now, it's certainly something to pay attention to. Good news. Okay, I'm going to end on kind of a good number in terms of knowing that we can try to help. Is the number of teens out of how many out of 5 teens give clear warning signs? And yeah, so 4 out of 5 will give clear warning signs. Now, our job now is, well, how do we find the kids who need the help, right? So we have lots of programs in schools. SEL has really taken off. I believe there's I know the tech team has a nice SEL session. Lots of great programs out there, and teaching kids how to recognize emotions and talk about them. There's still then the kids that kind of internalize things. They may present very happy, everything's normal, I'm very high performing, and then on the inside there's something going on. I kind of equate this to a duck on a pond, where on the surface they look just fine, but those feet are paddling pretty rapidly underneath. So do we have any questions so far? I mean, that's all data just to kind of lay the groundwork as far as the problem may or may not be bigger than it seems. So we're going to take a look at how we look at that. Any questions that you can see, Nina?
Nothing in the Q&A box just yet.
Okay, all right. So now we're going to get into, again, how do we find the warning signs? And this is a little bit more about now how Gaggle can help schools identify kids that are struggling, identify threats right? So I know I kind of ended with more of the suicide, self-harm type questioning and those stats. But let's think about school safety, things that lead up to that, kids being bullied, abuse in the home, these conversations are happening. These are just 3 examples of things that could be overheard or seen, or someone told you. These are conversations that are happening. I was in a conversation the other day with a school administrator, and they said, the kids are going to talk. They're going to talk to somebody, right? A lot of times they're counseling each other almost, but they're going to leave signs at some point about something. Where can we look and reliably kind of find those and get the kids the help they need? So these are again, these are conversations that I'm sure happen every, almost, maybe not all of them, but things that happen daily in the classroom. But now with the pandemic and going back hybrid, going fully online, this is now where any environment that we're in, even if we're in full time, digital learning has now really kind of moved to the forefront. So we want to be able to be aware in those virtual hallways, right? These are now virtual classrooms, part of your school, right? So what if these same things, these same conversations are happening, but they're happening over email, or they're happening which very often does, they're happening in an online document, like a Google Doc, right? Or something like this. I did see did a question pop up?
Yes. Letitia asks, who attempts suicide more, males or females?
That's a great question. And depending on the age groups and the areas, those numbers kind of vary. I know that females tend to attempt more, whereas the males end up completing more. So if you're looking at attempts versus completed, then female attempts tend to be higher. You can get really into the weeds in terms of the modality and what how they make the attempts. But yeah, certainly something to be aware of is who's more likely perhaps, but definitely a concern across the board. All right. And thank you for that question. So here's an example, and I just showed a couple of examples of these digital conversations now, right? So these digital conversations are happening inside, whether it's happening with everybody, whether it's happening with small groups. When we expand our buildings into these virtual spaces, we should expect that students are going to be social there as well. They're not just doing their research or doing their collaborative projects, right? It's a collaborative space that's open to them. So what we need to do is we need to pay attention to what are kids saying here, okay? And how Gaggle, I mentioned back in 1998, how we started was a safe email service, because email was kind of risky then. It's risky now because you don't know who they're talking to, right? So what we have at Gaggle is we have a system that combines technology and people. The first level of the system is a machine learning algorithm that scans the content that's being uploaded, created, shared, sent, received in these 3 popular platforms. So if you're using G Suite for Education, Google Classroom, including Google Hangouts, chat, so the chat component. If you're using the Canvas learning management system, or if your school or district is a Microsoft Office 365 district, using OneDrive, OneNotes, online Word documents, even Teams. These spaces, right, the more we use them for learning, the more kids get comfortable with them. And then in some ways, we want to encourage students to kind of express their feelings. And if they're doing that, if they really kind of get deep, they will share some things that may be time sensitive. And sooner than later, early in the process, if we can get them help and say, hey, this is, let's connect you with a counselor, hopefully those things don't snowball and then get get out of control. So what our system does is it pulls out language, keywords, phrases, and I'm actually going to go back a slide because I want you to look at this particular line of text and understand that if you were to do a keyword or enter a list of keywords to look out for, I don't know if any of these would be on my radar. Okay, I would be looking for more aggressive or more obvious words. So it's more about, there are some keywords that are obviously going to be flagged, but there are also just general language patterns that tend to be kind of suspicious. And look, the idea here is that technology is just looking for warning signs, but those warning signs might not actually be legitimate, right? So that's why everything that gets picked up will go to a trained safety expert. We have a team of them that work 24/7, 365. And what they're looking for is more of the context behind that language, because the keyword might pick up, keyword or a phrase might sound threatening, but yet it's, maybe it's celebratory about, hey, our team just killed the other team or something like that. So the context is important, and the human emotion of context, knowing that, is this an emergency, or is this a false alert, or is this something that, is it something someone should know about? Again, early warning signs, right? 4 out of 5 students leave warning signs. Where are those signs? Can we find them earlier? Okay, and so when our experts review those, if based on the context and the content that needs to be notified, we will notify the predetermined contacts that are identified at the school or the district, depending on kind of how that's all set up. And as soon as that happens, you have the information you need to take action, right? And that's what it's all about. It's about kind of shortening the distance to from warning sign to solution or intervention. Okay? I'll just stop really quick. Any questions about that process? I know that's kind of a very quick, but the thing about Gaggle, it's not something you actively do. Okay, it's something that works in the background, and the people that you would tell in the school building that I need to connect the student with a counselor, or we need to do X, Y, and Z. Those same people they're just going to be getting the information that's going to help.
I don't see anything in the chat box.
Okay, perfect. I must be doing either. I'm either doing it very clearly, or I'm doing it very fuzzy. But
I think it's very clear.
Again, the whole point really is, schools are virtual or hybrid. There's these spaces that are really, we have to consider these spaces as, I talked to a tech director the other day. These are virtual classrooms that we're just putting kids in, and with no supervision, right? So it's not about being punitive at all. It's finding who needs help and how can we get them help faster. Some of the big stats that we keep track of, we just looked at the data from the last school year, from 2019-20 that ended June 30th. We do keep a count of lives saved, and that's an important number, because when we do that by students students will write a goodbye letter, and it will be very clear and it will be very detailed. And in those situations, we make contact with the district, and the district confirms that has been helped with and dealt with. Then we do count that. So it's very important for us to catch those before, so they don't just sit there. Someone has to see those and act on those. Bigger picture is those early warning signs. Though we found about 64,000 of those little warning signs that can start the intervention process for you. As much as physical, we're kind of talking more emotional, but we do see references to physical violence. Students will talk about those things, whether they're threatening each other or bullying each other. And then, the other thing that we actually see, unfortunately, but we can help control it, is students will take pictures with their phones and they will end up putting them into like a Google Doc or Google Drive and trying and sharing those. And that gets into a very touchy situation, for both the district and for that student. So, we help intercept those and remove those so that, so from a lot of different reasons that those don't get distributed, and then something, really bad happens. So I do want to focus on just from March to the end of the year. What we did see more of is we did see a spike in explicit content. So more pictures were being taken and shared. That one of the more heartbreaking ones, for me, is the second one is, without having someone to go to notice signs. I know I've seen articles and stats where, calls to domestic abuse hotlines were actually down because, you're not in the classroom seeing kids and making those reports. So, but kids are still talking about it, and they were talking about it quite a bit. Your district or your school may have not used Hangouts or Teams, that extra chat component, before the pandemic. Those were pretty quickly enabled, and then we had to help protect those. And then if you have kids at home, I'm sure you probably noticed that they were just up later, and even using the school tools, like schools gave out these devices, and kids did use them quite a bit later into the evening and after hours, much more so than pre-pandemic. Okay. I'm going to take a break from talking. I'm going to have this is a 2-minute video. This will give us a nice transition. And then this is from a superintendent in California, just kind of talking about their experience, kind of pre and during the pandemic. I'll let you watch this, and then we will wrap it up.
Fillmore Unified School District has been using Office 365 for quite some time now. We started using it in 2015. We expanded use into Teams and some of the other components over the last 2 years. And in this year, we went from having a small number of users in Teams to now having over 2,000 users every day accessing Teams. In April of 2020, during the coronavirus COVID-19 component of our response, we had already been in process with Gaggle, and it could not have come at a more appropriate time. Because of our work in putting out more devices to our students, because of our work now moving from the brick and mortar to the homes of every one of our district households, having the partnership with Gaggle created another safety net for us. Because we're not able to be directly in the home or see that student come through the gate the next day, the next best thing is being able to reach out, make contact with that parent or guardian, inform them of what was there, as difficult as it may be sometimes, because no parent wants to hear about their child wanting to hurt themselves or hurt others. But for us, it has become an essential tool in being able to create that outreach, create a plan of support, and then more importantly, make sure they're safe. From the moment that our administrator accounts had been activated and folks were in process for training, we immediately received 2 notifications of questionable content. Unfortunately, in one of the cases, it involved one of our students in our district who had put something in the Teams portal in the chat about hurting themselves, about the loneliness and the desperation they were feeling in being at home, and they reached out for help. And I will say that had it not been for Gaggle, we would not have been able to jump in and intervene when we did.
Right. So always like to have perspective from a district leader that just kind of gives the perspective. And I like that video specifically because it does address what we're dealing with now, and that distance learning. So as I'm going to wrap up here, I'm going to show you some other resources, things that I've found that are important to keeping students safe. I understand if you're a teacher, this is something that Gaggle might be worth asking about. Do we have this? Because ultimately, we're as classroom teachers or or specialists, our job is to help kids be their best, right, and educate them. So if they're struggling with something and we don't know about it, there's going to be a barrier there. So it does trickle down, even though the classroom teachers may not be the ones directly responding, but it does trickle down to and go to the community too, because every child is worth it, right? Every child is important, and if they're struggling, then that's going to have a negative effect. So I found a wonderful article. It's linked in the presentation, so when you get the follow-up, you'll get the presentation with all of the links. There was an article by Ed Surge, and they make a bunch of recommendations and for things, but just thinking about how can we be more proactive, right? So first and foremost, and I think this is for my kids, like establishing and maintaining routines. That's a thing that I saw continually through through the pandemic, professionally even, is making sure that we establish routines and then keep them, because that helps kids feel, at least that things are more normal. A popular thing, and this is where we can kind of cross this with what Gaggle does. We do it proactively and automatically, but starting classes, and I'm sure you're doing this. If you're a classroom teacher, using Zoom or Meet. But starting classes with an emotional check-in, basically talking about how you're feeling today, right? How's everybody feeling? Kind of like circle time or group conversations that you might do to start the class. I also have linked here just an example. There's a couple of them. Use a Google form or a Microsoft form of that you can send out and have kids click daily, like, hey, I'm feeling happy today. I'm feeling sad today. Leave a space for comments, and that you might get some responses there depending on the day and how kids are doing. Obviously, being sensitive to to health and financial challenges and environments. I know Zoom has the custom background. Meet, I believe, is adding it if it's not already there. Or blurred background. Teams, same thing. So that they don't feel uncomfortable about about where they are, but also being sensitive to workload and all those things. So thinking about things from an emotional perspective, because we're all dealing with trauma right now, and students certainly don't. The younger they are, they don't have the tools to deal with the trauma as much as we do. So being very sensitive to that is going to be important. And then providing clear pathways for help. So if if I'm ready to ask for help, do I know where to go, right? If I'm struggling with something, I think I need to talk to somebody. I want to reach out. So making sure that the line to teacher, line to counselor is established and clear. And again, there's a lot more in that article. It's linked in the presentation. It's not very long, but a lot of good things. Some of my favorite resources when it comes to child well-being and suicide prevention. Nationwide Children's Hospital. They're in Ohio, but they have a wonderful set of tools. They frequently publish blogs and toolkits that are really helpful. And they usually have a parent version and a school version. So if you have kids at home, check it out. But that site is linked there. The JED Foundation I mentioned earlier, they're very active in suicide prevention training. And Trevor Project is another one. And if you do have an opportunity, if you hear about it or hear it being offered, the Youth Mental Health First Aid is it's an 8-hour course, just kind of similar to CPR first aid, and it just teaches you how to recognize signs and how to ask and not judgmentally. There's a whole process for it, and it's also helpful over Zoom, like how do we recognize signs when we can't really physically see the students, some of the nuances. So just being aware of some of the subtle warning signs. I have to include this, if you don't know, or just from personally or family or student wise, these are the kind of the three numbers. If you're in New York State, there's a specific New York State emotional support line, but the crisis text line is tends to be popular for younger kids because they can text. and have a text conversation, and then those people are very highly trained to to deal with those crises. So so this is all in the presentation, and that is the end of my presentation in terms of what I'm sharing with you. I'd love to take some questions, or if you're curious, if you have questions about Gaggle or questions about anything, I'll try to answer those. But again, my email address is there. I'm on Twitter at @TimorHod, and I'm gonna just show my camera again and see if we have any questions, if we want to start. Any questions? I have some question prompts if that would be helpful.
And Tim, I just wanted to thank you again so much for doing this. I think we all, hearing these numbers, they are absolutely startling. So.
Yeah, and I for me as a parent and a former teacher, it's hard. It's hard to think about those type of things happening. And this is really just you got to know about it. You have to know it's an issue, and then are there tools that can help us, and it's certainly not the end all be all, and there's definitely multiple layers of what we need to do to help, but certainly doing everything. When we say we do everything we can, at the end of the day, did I do everything I could to help? So if there's any, I'll hang out. If there's any questions, again, email me questions after. You can tweet me. Happy to help. Thank you, Susan. Thanks for being here.
I know, and thank you all for joining us today for this session. This was a wise choice to come to this one. I know, I just feel like a little overwhelmed. I'm sure we all do by this information, but knowing that there is a resource out there that can help helps take some of the fear away, because at least you have insight to it.
Yeah.
So. Okay. And as Tim mentioned in the follow-up email, we're going to include a video of this as well as the slide deck. So you'll have all that information readily available.
Perfect. You can watch it over and over again. But please feel free to share. Again, this is it is a service that a school's contract with. It is there's the process that you would take for that. But if you're involved with working with kids and you're curious, like, do we have something like this? Certainly feel free to share my information with your team.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to wrap things up because I don't see any questions coming in.
Okay. Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much again.
Yeah.
And
Thank
everyone,
you, Nina. This was awesome.
Yeah, and if anyone else is having some extra time on their hands, we do have more sessions today, so make sure to check out our schedule. Up next, we have how virtual reality can improve student outcomes through diversity, equity, and inclusion training. So make sure to stick around. At 2 p.m. we go live with that session. Tim, thank you so much.
All right, Nina, thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.